Captain Serena Hart stood at the center of the operations room, her eyes fixed on the array of monitors flashing urgent data. The soft hum of machinery and the occasional beep of a distant alert were the only sounds breaking the silence that had filled the room for the past hour. Everything felt eerily calm, as though the world was holding its breath. Earth had been under threat before, of course. Spacefaring species had long observed the planet, but few took it seriously. For centuries, Earth had been dismissed as insignificant, just another backwater world in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. But now that would change. The HFY Dominion, an alien race feared across the stars, was heading straight for Earth, and their fleet was already nearing the outer edges of the solar system. The Dominion was known for its ruthlessness, its vast armada, and its technological superiority. Their weapons could obliterate entire cities in an instant, and their fleet could destroy a planet in the blink of an eye. Serena had always known that one day, something like this might happen, but no one had ever truly believed it would. A small red light blinked at the corner of her console, drawing her attention. Her eyes narrowed. The fleet wasn't just approaching, they were on a direct course toward Earth. The sensors were picking up the signature of multiple ships, each one massive, almost incomprehensible in size. "Alert all stations," Serena barked, her voice sharp. "This is not a drill. Prepare for full-scale defense." The intercom crackled to life. "Captain, it's not good. Their fleet is nearly here. We've got less than 10 hours before they reach Earth's orbit." She nodded grimly, though her mind was already racing. Earth had nothing that could match the HFY. No weapons, no defenses that could even scratch the surface of the alien ships. Their military capabilities were outdated by centuries, their fleet small and ill-equipped for a threat of this magnitude. If she could only buy time, if she could only hold off the inevitable long enough, maybe humanity could find some way to fight back. "Status on civilian evacuations?" Serena asked, turning to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Alex Monroe, a seasoned officer with a sharp mind and a calm demeanor that contrasted sharply with her own urgency. "Evacuations are underway," Monroe replied, his voice steady. "But with the ships in orbit, we're looking at mass casualties if they strike. We're estimating the first wave will hit within 6 hours. We need more time." Serena's eyes flickered to the screen again, watching the alien fleet's approach. They were no longer just distant blips, they were real, massive, and moving fast. The sheer scale of it all made her heart race. "We won't have more time," she muttered, a flicker of something deep in her chest rising up. A cold, sinking feeling. She knew the odds, but something else gnawed at her, something she couldn't ignore. Years ago, when she was still a young officer, she had overheard rumors. Strange stories from old, retired commanders, hushed whispers about Earth's past. Myths of an ancient energy, buried beneath the surface, capable of repelling any threat. But most dismissed those stories as nothing more than fanciful legends. Yet now, in the face of certain defeat, those rumors had returned to her thoughts. Could they be true? Could Earth have some hidden weapon that no one had thought to uncover? Or had humanity truly been as defenseless as they seemed? "Captain," Monroe's voice broke her from her thoughts. He was staring at a new set of incoming data. They're slowing down. It's like they're waiting for something." Serena frowned, her mind spinning. She didn't trust the HFY to wait for anything, not unless it was part of some larger strategy. Was this a trap? Or something else? "Any communications from the fleet?" she asked, trying to keep her voice even. "No response," Monroe replied. "They're not even attempting to hail us. They're just waiting." The silence in the room deepened, as if the whole planet were holding its breath along with them. Serena crossed her arms, her gaze hardening. She walked to the back of the room, where a massive holographic display showed the positions of every known ship in the system. There, hanging like a dark, ominous cloud, were the HFY warships. A sharp spike of fear surged in her chest, but she tamped it down, her mind clicking into its tactical mode. "What's our status on countermeasures?" she asked, her tone colder now. "We've got nothing effective against them," Monroe answered, turning to face her. "We're preparing the last of our interceptor missiles, but honestly, Captain, I'm not sure they'll even be able to breach the outer shields of the THRYXX ships." Serena ran a hand over her face, thinking quickly. Earth had been complacent, believing it would never have to face a full-scale alien invasion. Now, as the planet teetered on the brink of disaster, they had no real military power left to use. But then, as if triggered by her frustration, another thought emerged, a thought so dangerous, so unexpected, that it made her pause. The rumors. She moved swiftly, her boots clicking sharply against the metal floor. Her mind made the decision before her body did. There was one last place to check, one last place where she might find answers, however unlikely. Dr. Ezekiel Price. The scientist who had dedicated his life to studying Earth's past and its hidden secrets. Years ago, he had sent her a cryptic message, warning her to dig deeper, to look beneath the surface of Earth's history. At the time, Serena had thought him mad, but now, she grabbed her communicator, dialing his private frequency. "It's time," she muttered to herself as the call rang through. The alien fleet was coming, and she wasn't going to wait for them to finish the job before fighting back. The icy winds of the Arctic cut through the small team as they boarded the transport shuttle, the whirring engines barely audible over the cacophony of alarms echoing in the background. Serena Hart's breath formed visible clouds in the frigid air, but her mind was far from the cold. The THRYXX were nearing, their massive ships descending toward Earth's surface with the unmistakable intent to annihilate. She had only hours, maybe less, before Earth would suffer its first devastating blow. The shuttle door sealed shut behind her, the low hum of the engines vibrating through her chest as the team buckled in. The mission was simple: get to the Arctic site Dr. Price had mentioned and figure out what they were dealing with. But Serena knew better than to trust simplicity when facing something this unprecedented. "Are you sure this is the right place?" Monroe's voice broke the silence. His tone was laced with skepticism, though his eyes betrayed a sharpness that belied his outward uncertainty. He sat across from Serena, his expression grim. The rest of the team sat in uneasy quiet, the weight of what was coming pressing down on everyone. "I don't know," Serena replied, her gaze fixed on the narrow strip of sky visible through the shuttle's viewport. "But Price swears this is the source. If this energy exists, it could be the only thing that can stop the THRYXX." Monroe didn't argue. He had seen the same analysis of Earth's defenses. There was nothing left but to gamble on the unknown. The shuttle shuddered as it broke through Earth's atmosphere, heading northward into the vast wilderness of the Arctic. "Captain," a voice called from the cockpit. "We're approaching the coordinates. I'm picking up heat signatures, but they're faint, almost masked." "Keep us on course," Serena ordered. The signal from Price was clear, but the isolation of the Arctic made their mission inherently dangerous. If the THRYXX had any idea what they were about to uncover, they would destroy it without hesitation. The window for success was small, shrinking by the minute. The shuttle landed with a soft jolt on a barren stretch of ice, the surrounding landscape a blanket of white stretching endlessly into the horizon. Serena's breath caught in her throat as she stepped out into the biting cold, the team following her into the stark, desolate terrain. The heat signatures on the radar were growing stronger as they approached the hidden site. It was there, beneath miles of ice, waiting to be uncovered. The team spread out, scanning the area with portable scanners, their eyes darting over the frozen expanse. The low hum of the equipment filled the air, but there was something else, a faint vibration beneath their feet. "It's close," Serena muttered. She felt the tremor in the ice, a deep, almost imperceptible pulse that vibrated up her spine. The energy was real. It was alive. Dr. Ezekiel Price, the scientist who had long speculated on the existence of this buried power, moved ahead, his breath visible in the frigid air. The aging scientist, with his unkempt hair and thick glasses, looked every bit the eccentric scholar he had been rumored to be. Yet as he approached a cluster of ice ridges, his usual disheveled demeanor shifted into a focused intensity. "It's beneath here," Price said, his voice low but firm, as he crouched beside an unusual formation of ice. His fingers traced patterns in the snow, outlining a hidden structure buried beneath the thick sheet of ice. The team gathered around, their breath clouding the air as they watched. "How deep?" Serena asked, her voice tight with anticipation. "Not far," Price replied, standing upright. "This energy is coming from a source buried in the bedrock. What we're standing on is a cover, a natural barrier. We'll need to excavate, but I don't think it will take long." Serena gave a sharp nod. "Get to work. We don't have much time." The excavation was slow but steady, the team cutting through the thick ice with specialized tools. The ground trembled again, more violently this time, as if the earth itself were aware of what was about to happen. Serena's pulse quickened. Every passing minute brought them closer to the inevitable conflict with the HFY. As the ice finally gave way to a smooth metallic surface, Price let out a small breath of awe. This is ancient. And powerful. It's not just some relic. This is a weapon." Serena's eyes narrowed. "A weapon." Price nodded, his eyes alight with excitement. "Yes. A weapon that could manipulate energy, even matter itself. It's more than anything we've ever seen. This power it's as if it controls the very fabric of the universe. Whoever controlled it in the past, they must have been gods." Serena took a step closer, her gaze fixed on the structure beneath the ice. The shimmering surface of the object was covered with strange symbols, alien in nature, but somehow familiar. The air around it seemed to pulse with an unspoken energy, as though it were waiting for something. She couldn't help but feel it, a deep, instinctive understanding that the Earth had hidden this power for a reason. "How do we activate it?" she asked, her voice low but resolute. The HFY were nearly here, and whatever this was, it had to be their salvation. Price studied the structure for a long moment, his brow furrowed in concentration. "There should be a command interface, a key if you will. I'll need time to decipher the symbols. But this isn't like anything I've seen. If we can unlock it, if we can understand its language, we may just have a fighting chance." Before Serena could respond, the ground beneath them shook violently. The team stumbled, their footing lost as the tremors intensified. "They're here," Monroe said, his voice laced with fear. Serena glanced up. In the distance, the sky was darkening with the shadows of descending ships. The HFY fleet had arrived. "Activate it now," she ordered. Price didn't hesitate, moving quickly to the interface embedded within the structure. His fingers flew over the controls, the strange symbols flashing before his eyes as he tried to decipher them. Each second felt like an eternity. The ground trembled again, this time more violently, as if the planet itself were urging them to hurry. The team stood watch, scanning the skies for any sign of the incoming assault. The distant hum of the alien fleet was growing louder, their weapons primed for destruction. They had to get this right. Price let out a sharp gasp, his fingers pausing over the last symbol. I think I've got it." Serena's heart raced. "Do it." With a final press of his fingers, the structure before them erupted in a surge of energy. The air hummed, the ground vibrating with a low, resonant sound. A blinding light shot from the heart of the structure, washing over the team. Serena shielded her eyes, her breath caught in her throat as the world seemed to bend around them. In the distance, the HFY ships halted mid-flight. For a moment, everything was still. Then, the light exploded outward in a wave, a pulse that spread across the Arctic landscape, powerful enough to shake the very sky itself. The HFY fleet halted, their ships faltering as the pulse reverberated through their systems. Serena's heart pounded in her chest. Something was happening. The battle for Earth had only just begun. The world shifted as the surge of energy swept across the Arctic landscape, rippling outward like a shockwave, flattening the snow beneath its force. Serena's heart stood frozen, her eyes wide as the pulse of light faded into the horizon. She could feel the air around her vibrating with an unsettling hum, like the heartbeat of something immense awakening deep beneath the Earth's surface. Price, still kneeling beside the strange metallic structure, looked up with awe in his eyes. The ancient interface had closed with a soft click, its energy now fully activated. He wiped his brow, his hands trembling slightly. I think we've just unleashed something far greater than I anticipated. Serena's heart raced. What are we dealing with, Price? What exactly did we just activate? Price stood, his old joints creaking, and turned to face her, his gaze full of a mixture of awe and fear. What we've unlocked is beyond anything I ever imagined. This isn't just a weapon, it's a force. A living, breathing entity that manipulates energy on a quantum level. What it controls, what it can do, is staggering. How is it supposed to help us? Monroe asked, his voice edged with impatience. His eyes scanned the sky, and Serena could see the worry in his face. The THRYXX fleet was still hovering above, waiting. If this thing is what I think it is, it can amplify human willpower, our collective strength, Price explained, looking down at the structure, his fingers now brushing against the symbols that were beginning to glow softly again. It's been dormant for millennia. The civilization that built it, they weren't just advanced, they were capable of bending the laws of nature. They used it as a way to protect the planet from invaders. Monroe frowned. So, it's like a defense mechanism? Why didn't we know about it until now? It was hidden, Price said, his voice low. Buried deep beneath the earth. This energy, it's more than just a weapon. It's a shield. But only when humanity is ready to harness it. Only when humanity truly understands the nature of its own strength. Serena wasn't convinced. So, we just activate it and hope it works? Price met her eyes, his expression grim. Not exactly. There's a connection. The energy can only be fully realized if the people of Earth, if we can align with it, if we unify, focus our collective will, we can direct its power. But if we fail, if we misuse it, it could consume us. The air seemed to grow heavier, and Serena swallowed hard. The stakes had just escalated. They weren't simply fighting for survival anymore. They were dealing with a force that could either save them or destroy them. We don't have the luxury of waiting for humanity to align, Serena muttered, her mind working quickly. We need to use it now. The THRYXX will be upon us in less than 2 hours. Price nodded, looking torn. I can try to stabilize the system, give you a better understanding of how to use it. But we need time. Time is something we don't have, Serena said firmly. You'll have to do it on the fly. She turned and motioned for her team to move out, already calculating their next steps. The THRYXX had made no move to engage yet, but the ships in the sky were like a dark cloud, waiting to strike. If they could somehow use this energy, they might stand a chance, but they had no time to test theories. Monroe, get a communication link to Earth Command, she ordered as she jogged toward the edge of the excavation site. Tell them we've found something, and that it might be our only hope. We need every available fighter jet and every weapon we have. Prepare for a full assault. Monroe nodded, his expression grim. You think they'll believe us? Serena didn't respond immediately. She watched as the THRYXX ships began to shift positions in the sky, their movements calculated and precise. They have to. There's no other option. As Monroe began transmitting the orders, Serena turned back to Price, who was already at work, his fingers dancing over the interface with surprising speed. His muttered words were incomprehensible, an odd mix of archaic languages and technical jargon. I think I can stabilize the energy output, Price said, not looking up. It's not perfect, but it should give you something to work with. You'll need to focus on directing it to the Earth's defenses, power up our military forces, give them the strength to fight back. It's all about channeling the energy through the collective will of humanity. Channeling it through humanity? Serena repeated, trying to grasp the full scope of what he was saying. You're telling me we need to inspire people to believe in this, to focus on it? Price nodded slowly, the weight of his words settling heavily in the air.
Exactly.
It's not enough to just push a button or activate a weapon. This energy requires belief, purpose. Only when humanity can truly unite in a common cause will it manifest fully. Serena felt the weight of that truth. The problem wasn't just that they were fighting an alien invasion. It was that Earth had to change, not just in the way it fought, but in the way it thought, acted, and believed. It was a shift that couldn't happen in the span of hours. Or could it? Monroe approached with a headset in hand, his face pale. Commands on the line. They're skeptical, Captain, but they're gearing up for the attack. We got fighters on standby. Good. Tell them to prepare for a coordinated assault. We're going to need all their firepower, and we're going to need them to work with the energy from the core. They need to be ready to trust this. Monroe hesitated. You're asking them to trust an untested weapon that we barely understand. Serena shot him a sharp look. If we don't try, we won't survive the next hour. As the last of the team members made final preparations, Serena's mind raced. She knew that the real challenge wasn't just activating the core's energy. It was using that energy to inspire humanity to fight back, to stand united against the overwhelming force of the THRYXX. She turned back to Price, who was now watching the distant ships through the translucent veil of the energy field that began to form around the excavation site. The structure beneath their feet was glowing brighter now, the power pulsing through the ice like a living thing. The core is ready, Price said, his voice steady despite the intensity of the moment. I've given it a focus. The energy will be more directed now. But remember, this isn't just a weapon. It's a test of humanity's will. Serena nodded. Then let's make sure humanity passes the test. The air in the Arctic wasteland was still, too still. The only sound that reached Serena Hart's ears was the hum of the core's energy, reverberating through the ground like the pulse of a sleeping giant. The THRYXX fleet hung ominously in the sky above, their massive ships poised, awaiting the right moment to strike. Serena stood at the edge of the excavation site, her eyes scanning the distant sky. She couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed in the air. Something about the core's activation had sent a tremor through Earth itself. The energy was alive now, flowing, but how long would it last? How much power could it really provide before it burned itself out? She needed answers, but there was no time left. The alien fleet was almost here. Price stood nearby, staring down at the glowing metallic structure. It's working, he muttered, almost to himself. The energy is resonating with the Earth's core. It's connecting, forming a network. Humanity's collective will. It's syncing with the core's power. Serena didn't have the luxury of pondering the complexities of it all. Can you stabilize it? Keep it running long enough for us to fight back. Price's eyes flicked to her, his face etched with concentration. I can try, but you need to understand, this isn't a conventional weapon. It's not just about strength. It's about focus, belief. If humanity can't align itself, it will be like trying to harness a storm. Monroe approached, his expression taut with urgency. We're running out of time. The THRYXX are getting closer. Can we really count on belief? Serena's jaw tightened. We don't have a choice. She turned and walked toward the makeshift command center, the weight of the world on her shoulders. The soldiers were already in position, preparing for what would likely be a futile first strike. They were brave, but the reality of the situation was sinking in. Earth's military wasn't equipped to fight a force like the THRYXX. Serena tapped into the comm system. Command, this is Captain Hart. We've activated the core, but we need more than just weapons to win this fight. The energy will work only if humanity believes it can. The world needs to unite. Every fighter, every soldier, every civilian. A crackling voice came through the static. Understood, Captain. We're mobilizing all forces. But how exactly are we supposed to use this power? Serena hesitated, the enormity of the task ahead hitting her all at once. I don't know yet, but we can't fight this war without the will to win. Tell the world what we're fighting for. Tell them the truth, and maybe, just maybe, they'll help us. The line went silent for a moment before the voice came back. We'll broadcast the message globally. Prepare for the assault. Serena glanced at Monroe, who was watching her with a mixture of skepticism and determination. Let's hope the world is ready. Hours passed in a blur of preparations and anxious waiting. The shuttle brought in more soldiers, and the fighters began to assemble, lining up along the perimeter. Serena stood at the heart of it all, the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. She couldn't afford to let doubt creep in, not now. The energy from the core pulsed like a living thing, its light now visible across the ice field, stretching into the heavens. It was as if the very earth had become a beacon, glowing with potential. Serena could feel the pull, the power, but it wasn't enough yet. Humanity had to focus, had to unite in a way it never had before. "Captain," Price's voice interrupted her thoughts. He was standing next to the core, his face illuminated by the faint, flickering light. "I've connected the energy grid to Earth's military systems, but it's unstable. If there's a surge—" "I'll take the risk," Serena interrupted, her voice firm. "We don't have a choice." Price looked at her, his brow furrowed in concern, but nodded. "Just be careful. If the energy misfires—" "I know," she said, her gaze fixed on the distant ships. The THRYXX were moving now, dropping lower in the sky. The time for talk was over. The first wave of THRYXX ships began their descent with a terrifying grace. Their dark hulls blotted out the sun, casting long shadows across the ice. Serena watched them approach, her pulse quickening. This was it. The moment they had prepared for, except no one really knew how to fight back. She reached into her comms unit again, speaking directly to the soldiers and civilians who had gathered worldwide. "This is Captain Serena Hart. The time has come to fight. We are not alone. The Earth has given us the strength to stand, to unite. Believe in it. Believe in yourselves. This is our world, and we will not let it fall." For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, from across the globe, a response began. A hum, a pulse of energy resonating back from every corner of the Earth. It started faintly, almost imperceptibly, but it grew. People from all walks of life began to believe, not just in their weapons, but in their ability to change the course of history. The energy from the core surged, and the world seemed to shift with it. Serena felt it first. A warmth spreading from her chest, radiating outward through her limbs, her entire body coming alive with the power of Earth itself. The soldiers felt it too, those closest to the core, their minds sharpening, their bodies gaining strength. The world had focused its will, and the core responded. The first THRYXX ship fired. Earth's defenses, once obsolete, now hummed with a new power. Energy surged through the military systems, amplifying their weapons beyond anything they'd imagined. The missile launched from Earth's defenses, tearing through the sky with terrifying speed. It collided with the alien ship, sending a shockwave of light and energy outward, and the THRYXX ship shattered in an explosion of sparks and fire. The soldiers cheered, but Serena didn't have time to savor the victory. The THRYXX fleet retaliated, their weapons glowing ominously as they launched their next barrage. The second wave was already on its way. "Focus," Serena shouted, her voice ringing out over the comms. "Don't let up. This is our moment. Keep fighting." The battlefield erupted into chaos, with Earth's forces fighting with a ferocity they had never known. The core's power surged through the military, and the alien ships began to falter, their shields weakening under the intensity of the combined will of humanity. The tide was turning, but the THRYXX were relentless, their response swift and deadly. Serena's breath came in short, sharp bursts as she directed the troops, her mind racing. The energy was volatile, sometimes overwhelming, sometimes flickering, as though it were testing humanity's resolve. They couldn't afford to lose focus now. The world's collective will had to remain strong. And for the first time in history, humanity stood united. They fought not just with weapons, but with the strength of their belief, their will to protect their home. The core had given them the means to fight back, but it was their spirit that would ultimately determine the outcome. The war had only just begun. The battle was far from over, but the tide had shifted. The THRYXX, once so certain of their victory, now found themselves struggling against an unforeseen force. Earth's military, empowered by the core, had begun to turn the alien assault back. Ships that had once seemed invincible now faltered under the weight of humanity's united will. Serena Hart stood on the rooftop of the command center, looking up at the sky. The sight of the THRYXX fleet, once an impenetrable wall of destruction, now seemed less imposing. The ships hovered, flickering in the light of the distant sun, their movements erratic as the energy pulses from Earth's defenses continued to surge. "Captain," Monroe's voice broke through her thoughts, his tone filled with a cautious optimism. "We've breached their shields again. Several ships are retreating, but we can't be sure if this is a tactical withdrawal or a full retreat." Serena's gaze never left the sky. "It doesn't matter. We push forward. We've already shown them that they underestimated us. This is our moment." Monroe watched her closely, his expression conflicted. "The energy, Captain, it's still unstable. The core is responding, but we don't know how long it'll hold. If it overloads—" "It won't," Serena interrupted, her voice firm. "We've come this far. We can't back down now. We've finished this." The hum of the core resonated from beneath the command center, its energy pulsing in synchronization with the heartbeat of the planet. Serena felt the power course through her, as if it had become part of her very being. The collective will of humanity, the focus and belief they had unified under, had turned the tide. But there was still so much to do. So much to prove. Across the globe, Earth's defenses were reaching their peak. The core's power, though volatile, had unlocked potential in every human, pushing them beyond their limits. Soldiers, civilians, engineers, and even children who had understood the weight of the situation had focused their energy toward one purpose: to protect their world. The air was charged with an energy unlike any Serena had ever felt. It wasn't just the core. It was humanity. People who had once been divided by borders, by ideologies, now fought as one. Together, they were unstoppable. The communications panel beside Serena beeped, pulling her back from her thoughts. She leaned forward, picking up the transmission. "This is General Harris of Earth Command," came the voice, calm but with an edge of disbelief. "Captain Hart, you need to see this. The THRYXX fleet is—" A loud explosion crackled through the comms, followed by a burst of static. Serena's heart skipped a beat. "Harris? What's going on?" she demanded. "We've just intercepted a final transmission from the THRYXX flagship, Captain. They're pulling back. Entire fleet's retreating." Harris's voice came back clearer, tinged with shock. "It seems they've underestimated Earth's potential. Their systems are failing. We've done it. We've won." For a moment, silence reigned. The truth of it settled slowly, like the realization of a dream coming true. Serena's hands clenched into fists at her sides. They had done it. Earth had won. Against all odds, humanity had fought back. "Confirm the retreat, Harris." "I need to be sure," Serena said, her voice steady, even though the weight of the victory pressed down on her chest. "It's confirmed, Captain. The fleet's gone. They're heading back to their territory. The war is over." Serena stood alone on the rooftop for several long minutes, the weight of the victory sinking in. The THRYXX, who had once seemed like an unstoppable force, had retreated, defeated not by weapons alone, but by the sheer strength of humanity's unity and will. It was a humbling, overwhelming realization. And yet, as much as Earth had won, there was still something missing. She turned back to the command center, her thoughts racing. The core had given them the power, but it was humanity that had made it work. How had they done it? The answer wasn't just in the energy. It was in their belief, in their ability to fight together. It had always been there, just waiting to be tapped. As she walked back inside, Monroe met her halfway, his face breaking into a rare, relieved smile. "It's over," he said, as if still trying to grasp the enormity of what had just happened. Serena nodded, but there was no joy in her face. "We've won. But what comes next?" Monroe's smile faltered, and he fell into step beside her. "Next? We rebuild. We learn from this. The core's power, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. We need to understand it, control it." Serena stopped walking, her gaze fixed on the window that looked out over the city. The streets were filled with people, cheering, celebrating. They had won, but Serena knew better than anyone that this was only the beginning. "We don't control it," she said quietly, her voice barely audible above the hum of the command center. "We learn to live with it. And we teach humanity how to use it wisely. This power, this gift, it's part of us now. And we can't take it for granted." Monroe looked at her, his expression softening. I think you're right." As the celebration outside grew louder, Serena turned away from the window and walked to the command table. "We've won this battle, but the war for the future of Earth has just begun. The THRYXX will regroup, and there are others out there. Others who will come, looking for weakness. We need to be ready." Monroe nodded. "What do we do now?" "We rebuild," Serena said firmly, a new resolve hardening in her voice. "But we also prepare. The next time, we won't just be defending. We'll be leading. We'll show the galaxy what humanity is capable of." As the night fell over the Earth, the world exhaled. The people who had once been divided, who had once been fractured by their differences, now stood united, stronger than they had ever been. Serena could feel it, the promise of a new dawn. The core had awakened something in humanity, but it wasn't just the power. It was the understanding that, together, they could overcome anything. Earth had won today. But tomorrow, they would forge a new future, one where humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer defined by fear, but by strength, unity, and hope.